that if you have people in the room that aren't all kind of from the same socioeconomic background, you would have better quality thoughts. Data can really transform the direction the businesses are going.
Hey everyone, I'm Nelya from Nelly Works. Welcome to my podcast, Nelly Talks, a careers-focused show for those who are considering careers in tech industry or maybe looking for a change of direction in this space. We will be interviewing different speakers in this field to understand their journeys, the hurdles they face, how they overcame those, and any tips and hints that they would like to share on the way. Hello, everyone. So today we have Yulia Kim on the podcast with us. Yulia, over to you. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi everyone, I'm Yulia. I am a senior manager in business intelligence at GoCardless. It's a fintech based in London, focused on the account-to-account payments. I would describe myself as an analyst at heart. Started as a financial and marketing analyst, test and learn analyst, and strategy analyst. Kind of experienced a number of different flavors. And a couple of years ago, I transitioned into the management path at my current employer at GoCardless, where I've spent the last sort of 6.5 years. Have always been in the data and analytics space, but occupying slightly different roles and perspective in different industries across London tech space, I guess.
Thank you for that intro. Yulia, I know we know each other personally for quite some time, and I can't believe being in talent space, I've never asked you this question, but how did you get into this world of analytics? I mean, how did you kind of decide to join this space?
It's been quite accidental. It wasn't as deliberate as you might think, but I found a good fit. As a university student, I always try to keep my options open. I've kind of explored different areas for internships or just to speak to various people. I was doing a film production internship at some point 18 years ago. I landed at an internship in a startup in London called Songkick. My title was a data warrior, I think, back in the day. And it was basically doing manual data cleaning tasks for concert listings. There were various demo days, and I saw a UX researcher deliver a presentation about how different marketing channels are performing, and they noticed like a spike using the data, and they were like, oh, this is because blah blah blah, we really should be considering investing more in this area. And just like that, all the founders were there. They were like, okay, let's do this, let's buy like advertising there, or let's do this. And I was like, just like that, it like happens. So I think I was then quite intrigued by the power of analytics and how data can really transform the direction the businesses are going. And I said, like, what is SQL? And people laughed and said, beware what you're asking about, so what you might end up doing. And lo and behold, over 12 years later, it's been my bread and butter for a majority of my analyst career.
To stay in the same vertical for so long, you obviously have to enjoy it. What would you say are the best things about working in this area?
I've always wanted to be somebody who solves problems, and that's something I really enjoy. And I think analytics provides you with a lot of opportunities to do that, because you're not limited to a particular slice, either horizontal or vertical. There are like different industries, from like education to tech to fintech to taxi and delivery, like ride sharing space, and then different slices of the business, like from finance, marketing, product. You can basically find your own niche. And I think that helps keeping people engaged. They can be as generalist or as specialist as they want. There's so many new titles, new flavors that have emerged. It's very broad and diverse, and it is very impactful. I think what I liked at the start and what I kind of continue seeing is you can take a problem or an area of opportunity, you can use data to solve that problem, or to channel the resources in the right way to make a really kind of fundamental impact on the business. That's exciting.
I think all functions, tech or not tech now, are data-driven, data-led. The term that gets killed, I think, in the tech industry, overused to death, but still very important. So I can see how partnering with different functions in this role is really good return on investment for businesses. And I guess on the flip side, no job is perfect. What would you say are kind of the common challenges that come up in this role, whether it's when you work as an IC or whether when you transition into leadership?
really, in order for data to make a difference, it needs to be used, it needs to be collected, it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be channeled in the right way, it needs to have the right skills and people applied to it in order to turn just the sort of numbers and figures into insights, because that's what really matters. The stories that can convince people to change direction, or the stories that convince people to take another look, the decision makers. This is what's challenging, like culturally. I'm very lucky that in many companies that I've been at, especially in the last maybe 10 years, they've been more of data hungry businesses. I think the mainstream consensus shifted to the data is a necessary resource and it's no longer an optional thing. So there hasn't been as much cultural resistance to data itself. I think early in my career, there's been like some situations where people were resistant and they said, why do I need you as an analyst to tell me where to cut costs? Or why do I need you to tell me how to do my job? I have the instinct. So I think there's been a really change in current for that. But I think now the challenge is slightly different. Now, with everybody being data hungry throughout the business, there's a lot of kind of demand and there's limited resources. So we've gone through various stages of growth and contraction and kind of another growth, but there's always more problems or more things that you could be doing with data, like more things to analyze, more things to ingest, more things to process and clean and etc. So I think the main challenge I'm seeing more in the leadership role, in the manager role, is like, where do we direct our resources to be most impactful for the business? If you judge by the number of requests we're getting, there's always too many for the number of people. It's kind of the managing that demand and supply and scanning the horizon and being more proactive and using the data kind of in a space where it's not being asked for. It's to say, okay, I've had the time to mine the data, had the time to have a look, and I've noticed that we could be doing this differently. The people who are bringing us problems, let's say sales team, right, sales leadership, they might not necessarily be the data experts to raise the right questions. So they would know the problems that they currently have, but they might not see the opportunities that might exist unmined.
Yeah, managing that reactive and proactive approach is probably kind of a consistent theme that comes up, and also like protecting your team from being sucked into so much tactical work that you actually not impacting business longer term. And how have you found that move going from individual contributor to a manager? Kind of how easy was that shift? Do you feel that do you have any support along the way that facilitated that?
Yeah, I've had the smoothest, I think one of the smoothest transitions you could dream of. It was with my current employer at GoCardless, and the opportunity arose as the head of BI at the time kind of moved geographically. So a couple of us in the team were given those kind of leadership opportunities to test ourselves out. And it was good in a way that we were allowed to be player managers. So it wasn't just like, hey, you're an individual contributor, and then today and tomorrow you are leading a team of 10. No, it was you mentor a kind of a younger counterpart, like your colleague. You become kind of a player manager. You do like 60-40, then you 70-30. You split your time. Now it's not like scientific, but it allows you to do what you do well, or as an analyst, and then also to share the knowledge and be able to direct, kind of dip your toe into that sort of management space. And if it's not something for you, it's been made clear that there are no closed doors. So you always have that opportunity to move back. Now, I think year 2 or year 3, we've been going through a tremendous period of growth, and we ended up hiring sort of a team of 10 people. And then suddenly I'm doing all the managerial kind of interviewing, sort of reaching out for talent and scanning this through the CVs, all the things that you know much more about than I do. But I think now it's really amazing to see the people that you've hired, 3-4 years ago are doing really, really well. And I think that's what makes me feel that I've made kind of the right decision, is because you have that long feedback loop, but you're able to kind of scale your impact more through not doing things yourself directly, but through helping other people succeed.
And that's probably why I love hiring, because, especially internally, you see that impact you can have on the tech community in your field. And yeah, there's nothing better than seeing the successful hires work out. And I guess as you moved into kind of management, and no doubt your role became more demanding, do you feel like this type of role allows you to have a good work-life balance?
It's less about the type of role, but more about the boundaries you've set for yourself, the type of employer that you've landed, or the type of manager you have, and I think the type of industry you're in. So I think there's potentially less space to talk about work-life balance if you become a manager in strategy consulting, where the expectations are that like long hours, high intensity work. I think not the flexibility itself, but the culture, which is very intimately related with the flexibility that I've chosen GoCardless for. I've had some life events more recently in my life, and the company culture, as well as kind of good relationship with your team and your managers, that allow you to maybe step away if need be. There is an element of luck, an element of quite deliberately choosing or talking openly with managers or with your teams about the work-life balance, and if that's a priority. It definitely has become more of a priority in my 30s compared to my 20s. For example, when we had more time to ourselves, we were much more willing to kind of go for it and work and have late nights, etc. I think when you start having a family, when you need to balance the various needs, it becomes more of a thing.
I think you're absolutely right. I think doing the due diligence upfront when you're considering employers, teams, what kind of managers you will have is really important. Yet perhaps not role specific, as you said, but more put into any role anyone considering new career. I can totally relate that how it becomes priority. And also when you start thinking about people who go into leadership at the demographic and experience level, those will be real consideration to a lot of them. Because you can't have a lot of folks in early 20s straight out of uni, internship, whatever path they chose, go and managing a team. But everyone wants those experience hires. So yeah, it's a really important thing for businesses to remember as well.
I think it's also, as a leader now or as a manager, you need to model the behaviors that you want the team to have. So if you want the team to work out of hours all the time, be available, that's what you do. If you don't want them to, they will look to you to kind of be guided by your behaviors as well. So be mindful of your behavior. It might have consequences that you didn't really necessarily anticipate.
Yeah, that's a really good point, kind of from leading from the front. It could be a positive and a negative that you're mirroring. I think it really sunk in with me when I started running my own business. I now, on purpose, don't reply to people who are on vacation.
That's right.
Me, because I have no business being like on Slack, other messaging tools, and I try and do the same, even if I do have to hold myself back. Yeah. Sometimes that's what you have to do. It's a really good point. Thank you. There's been kind of a lot of hype around AI, specifically in 2023, Gen AI. How has AI impacted your role or the function itself in the business, do you think? Any other tech developments in your field that excite you at the moment?
So I think with AI, I think we're yet to see the whole impact. There's a lot of hype over it. But I think from the machine learning and AI being kind of something that is remote and far away, the whole Gen AI kind of, it's much more accessible to people. So anybody can go, log into ChatGPT and kind of have a taste of it. I haven't seen huge amounts of applications directly in my workplace. I think that there's been a lot of tools that now make your life easier, so they can summarize the notes. Maybe from this podcast, maybe things will be auto summarized. Maybe you will find interesting snippets. So a lot of time savings can be had. And I think this is amazing. But I think we also want to be cautious, because that access, so being able to use AI by non-professionals, by people who don't have the full appreciation of the whole impact of what it can do, it can be risky, and it could lead to sort of biases being unconsciously applied to take the output as given. So for example, if you're looking for medical advice, ChatGPT would actually say, like, go and consult your healthcare professional, rather than necessarily taking what is given. AI can analyze data much faster than humans ever will be able to. But I think you need to moderate AI, and you need to be able to have that understanding that AI isn't perfect and there's a human element that needs to be applied still. There is a lot of ethical considerations. For example, would we, predict that somebody can be a criminal based on their behavior, and then we stop them before they become a criminal, before they actually commit a crime? So it's sort of like Black Mirror-esque scenarios. We're hopefully not close to that, but we just need to be a little bit careful about how AI gets applied. It can be used for good or for bad. The importance of privacy and security has accentuated. It's become even more important now because a lot of people can use AI, or maybe the bad agents can get to the same results faster. I think the governance and security and privacy around data and how data can be used are going to grow in its importance. Another trend that is interesting, like from the data side, is this data democratization as well. It's about kind of growing the data cultures. And now you don't have to have an analyst or a data scientist, or you don't have to be one in order to get the benefits of it. You could give an AI the data set and ask it to kind of tell you about the trends, or you could ask it to talk about outliers, etc. And that it could risk our jobs. I think rather than that, it's more likely to enhance and free up the time, because for a lot of analysts and data scientists, the time on the job is spent cleaning and doing kind of the manual bits around itself. So it's a bit of a mumbled answer, but I think the jury's out there whether it's a force for good or not. And I think humans need to be vigilant in how they apply AI. And there's still a lot of friction in terms of getting training. You and I are, 30-something, relatively tech savvy. We own computers. We have access to technology, but not everybody does. And I think we kind of can be in our own bubble that assume that everybody else does.
Great point. I think, again, you're often preaching to converted here, because my 12-year-old son was telling me about the AI app that most of the kids in his school, this is the age of 12, 13, used to support with homework, right? This is probably the youngest of Generation Z. They will use it, because, and they don't even see this as like AI or Gen AI, just a tool that's on their phone that's accessible. There is a stat now that 60% of the generation use AI for job applications or writing their papers university, like what guide is there for universities, for employers, for teachers? Recruitment is one of those areas, I had last week only 5 fake candidates. If I just pushed them through the AI tag that I have, they would have probably gone through the interview. Perhaps even, by using interview co-pilots, could have gone through the technical interviews. The technology is so advanced. So having a human curating the process is really important, because, teaching that lived context to AI is very difficult because it's, there are biases. So yeah, I think as long as we got to the point in recruitment where having unconscious bias as a human sometimes is better than AI having the data bias, just because of the risk.
You superimpose the various biases to cancel them out.
I never thought I'd say that in my hiring career. But brings us nicely to the diversity, kind of unconscious biases, inclusivity topic. As you've been obviously working in tech for a number of years now, do you see more diversity and representation in your field now compared to perhaps when you were starting up?
I would say broadly, yes. It's hard for me to sort of judge sort of temporarily over time, because I've shifted out my focus slightly. So to give you an example, at Google, I was part of the finance team, and there were all the leaders, including all the way up to the CFO, Ruth Borat. Like, there were a lot of female leaders, and it was noticeable and maybe a bit stand out. At GoCardless, we have the female CFO, an incredible role model as well. But if you pivot and look at tech, or more specifically engineering, I think there is an ongoing problem with kind of diversity not being where it could be. I think the analytics space is fairly egalitarian. Yes, maybe you need to be a little bit better with numbers to start with, but there isn't such an acute problem as it is with software engineering. We have some D&I metrics in our own company, and they've been getting better over time, specifically around women in leadership. So it's not just about either the industry role, but actually the seniority. I think where the imbalances felt more acute is particularly women in leadership. But if you talk about sort of diversity from the socioeconomic or like race or LGBTQ spectrum, that I think I am noticing positive developments overall. I think with GoCardless, it's been joked that our team was like one of the most diverse teams in the product development, like on all spectrum. I think things are getting better, but we're probably getting a little bit more tired talking about diversity.
I think especially with the focus on AI so much, kind of lean teams, cost optimization, it does feel like there is a bit of diversity fatigue in
Yeah.
tech. Sounds like you've got a great team, that the company's done something right in terms of bringing up diverse talent and perhaps promoting it into leadership roles. Have you seen any programs or anything that perhaps companies where you worked in have done well to nurture this culture of diversity, to encourage more talent from different underrepresented groups into different roles?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So I think one is just being aware. I think being aware that these biases exist, that this is like, I know it's a bit of a contentious topic. So I think when I joined Google, they were like one of the first things they did in their onboarding was like the unconscious bias training. And at that time I was like, well, what is that? Now I think there is questions about how effective that is, but undoubtedly, like, it got me thinking that there are biases that can be in your subconscious that you might not think you have. But just raising awareness of those things is one. Two is ERG groups and creating belonging and sort of promoting those various opportunities. So, for example, I think Monzo or some of the other sort of the fintechs, they basically go out there and sort of trumpet that they are inclusive spaces to work for, let's say, for people on the LGBTQIA spectrum, right? Or that might be good for trans people. So I think if you start kind of being noticed in various communities, people will read about it in blog posts and will be more likely to apply to your company if it's known to be or like a member of a certain organization, etc. I think also being deliberate about the processes that people might not think that are impacting. So, for example, a lot of people, when you apply for a data science role, they kind of require a PhD and 3 degrees and whatnot. But in reality, in order to do the job, you might not need that. But it's known that women are less likely to apply if they don't tick exactly like 100% of the boxes. So that could be considered as a job role or job spec with a lot of lines on their requirements list might be not very conducive to diversity, right? So being able to do that and actually, as an employer, as a hiring manager, really kind of going through the job spec and being honest with yourself of whether you really need every single thing that you're asking for. I think the final thing is really not really kind of chasing diversity for its own sake, but really understanding why you're trying to promote that, because it is a thing that's just good and it's all right, but it's a thing that also improves business outcomes. If you have people in the room that aren't all kind of from the same socioeconomic background, you would have better quality thoughts at the table. So keeping the why in mind, I think, is what we all should be doing.
I think it's exactly that. Diversity should be a byproduct, right, of us just being informed. And like you're saying, like, no one loves a shopping list when they apply. I don't think really any group likes it, but yeah, it could be exceptionally discouraging. It's nice to hear that you, as someone who does hiring, I'm sure, is things like that. It's not always a majority take. It's probably why people like me are in this space. But yeah, I've had the fun inclusive hiring training when I joined Facebook. A couple of them, you have to renew them. And I have rolled it out to hiring managers, and you still be surprised. Keeping yourself in check and being aware of it is probably one of the hardest things because they're conscious, right? Amazing. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. And look, to wrap us up, what advice would you give to someone considering a career in this field? Either someone starting up or perhaps considering pivoting into analytics focused domain?
I think so many things really, but I think the barriers to entry in this space are fairly low. I think you need to have common sense, you need to have curiosity and be kind of interested in solving problems. You should really try to do a little bit of research to understand the various different roles. There's been a proliferation of different niche roles. Do you want to be a data engineer? which is quite different to, let's say, a product marketing analyst, to understand how your personality, your profile, and your skills would fit in this space. I think you would also see if you are a career switcher. I've done a bit of training with various schools on data analytics. There are a lot of ways of rebranding your existing skills and knowledge of the business to an analytics career. So just really trying to understand and marry the two would really kind of set you apart. I think don't wait. Like I said, do a bit of research, but I'd say don't wait. There are such low barriers that you could be doing some freelance gigs on the side in terms of analytics. You could be teaching yourself how to use a BI software or data analytics software. You could be doing like Tableau projects. There is a lot of ways to start without like a 3-4 year degree to see if it's right for you, if it's something that you would like diving in for the long haul, so I'd say don't be scared, go for it, and take risks.
Great advice. People talk themselves out of this thing sometimes without giving it a good go. So it's nice to hear that you can kind of dip your toe in the water, test it out, and hopefully it can lead to a really successful career. Thank you so much for sharing all the tips. It's been great having you on the podcast today. I think our audience should be making a lot of notes. Thank you so much for your time, Yulia.
Thank you, Nelya. It's been great chatting with you as always. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you to all our lovely listeners for sticking with us. I hope you found this useful, and please do share, like, etc. Check out our next episode that comes out in 2 weeks' time.